Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing very well, and welcome to the Turbo Makes Games YouTube channel. Today, I have a very special guest. I have Jason Weimann here with me. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here, man. I'm really excited.
Awesome. Yeah, we actually just wrapped up recording a video on his channel where we talked a lot about Unity's data-oriented technology stack. We went a little bit into the job system, ECS, just kind of talking about some high-performance coding in general. So go check out that video. After you watch this one, of course. I think that was a good conversation there.
Yeah, that was really, really helpful for me too. And I think for most of the viewers, because it was a nice update on where ECS is, where the job system is, and whether or not people should use it. One of the questions I get all the time is, should I use dots? Should I be using ECS? And I think that in that video, you did a good job of kind of answering where you should, where you shouldn't use it, and how you could go about that process. So I would really appreciate it. And again, thanks for coming on and just sharing all that info with everybody. And yeah, make sure that you guys hit the like and subscribe button on this video and that one.
Yes, please do. Please do. Yeah. So, anyways, I think we're just going to talk a little bit more about performance in game development, kind of more in a general sense, not necessarily related to dots and ECS, at least to start. Because Jason, you did bring up something interesting. It sounded like you had a cool story to talk about some performance issues that you ran into when you were working as a game developer. So, take it away.
Okay, yeah. So that was it's a I don't know about cool, but it was it was definitely
Interesting.
an interesting one. This
Yeah.
was like a big performance mistake that cost many, many millions of dollars and kind of destroyed a AAA game that I was working on, right?
Oh yeah, I
So
love
this
it.
was
Let's hear
a
it.
while ago. Gosh, it was early 2000s. I can't remember the exact year. You could probably look up the year that the game released. And the game I was working on was Vanguard Saga of Heroes. It was
Nice.
this MMO made by a bunch of guys who created some of the first MMO RPGs. They were working on it kind of alongside with when WoW was being built. This kind of launching right around the same, a little bit after. It wasn't like around exactly the same time, but they were kind of building around the same time. And it came out after WoW had been out, but it was just a big, large scale MMO that was high perform or high quality graphics at the time. If you look at it now, you'll laugh because it's like Unreal 2.5 ish version, like
Nice.
but it was trying to push the boundaries at the time to go for really nice visuals and stuff. But when the game launched, it had some really, really terrible performance. I mean, there were a lot of people who like got in and just like couldn't play, would log out and quit. In fact, one of the first things that I did when I was working there was gather up the data. So one, let me backtrack just a little bit. When I first started working on the team doing this stuff, I was doing some tools development, and one of the tasks was to help try to figure out what we should be focusing on and what players were doing and why the players were falling off. So we had a meeting about like why are we losing a lot of players? What data can we find out? We have a little bit of data like in our actual game database of like characters, what they've been doing, where they've been going, the logs of that stuff. Can we figure out what's happening? So what I did was put together some tracking on that data. I forget exactly what tools I used. It took all the data from our databases, combined it all in, built up a little bit of tooling and some web reporting, and realized that like half of our players never made it past level one. Like
Oh,
literally half the people that bought the game and logged in did not make it
oof.
past level one. Didn't even kill anything.
Oh,
Their
no.
performance was so bad they were logging in and then either crashing or logging out. Like they
Whoa.
weren't killing anything at all. It was nuts. I was like, what the hell? And then like a large percent were just barely doing anything at all. Like it was a large number of people were bailing out because they just could not play the game. It wasn't like they didn't like the game and never did anything in it because they couldn't play it. And that of course brought on an emergency. Everybody was like, "Oh well, we knew performance was bad, but we didn't know it was that bad because
Yeah,
it
and
was."
real quick, just to don't mean to cut you off, but that's
No,
why
go
it's
ahead.
important to have analytics and, pay attention to those kinds of things because, you might not have really figured out that there was like that widespread of a problem.
Oh yeah, and we didn't really know. We knew that we had big churn, but we had no idea that people weren't actually playing the game, right? Like we
Yeah,
knew
yeah.
we had some analytics. We had the analytics on like the billing side to know that like people were dropping off and unsubscribing, not to know what they were doing in there. And to be fair, this was again early 2000s. I would expect any company now to have some good analytics on this stuff in advance, and I highly
Yeah,
recommend you do.
yeah, yeah. It's not
But
like
it
Unity
was
Cloud Analytics or whatever, but
something. It's so much easier now to set up. Like you don't have to have somebody in your team build a custom thing and query your database to figure out what's going on. Like just push this data up as people do things. But as you can imagine, this brought on like a giant panic of everybody freaking out. Like, how do we
totally.
fix performance? And they're all trying to optimize the models, optimize the renderer, and all these other things, performance improvements here and there. But everybody that's doing this is all running on their dev systems, right? And they're all
Yeah.
top of the line, like, Intel Xeon systems with the best video card and lots of RAM and all that. So we're building on these and it's all going good, seeing the performance increases and stuff. But it's not making a big difference for the players until what actually happened was not much longer. So this was relatively quick. It kind of all happened at the same time. One of the other programmers on the team got tasked to just start profiling the game. So to go install, Intel had a profiler VTune back then. This is
Okay.
before there were like profilers built into your editor and your
Yeah, yeah,
engine.
yeah,
So anything you could just
yeah.
plug in. I think he went and got the license for VTune and then went through like a many day setup process to get it figured out and working. And he was at the same time like a junior developer like me. I think he was pretty much fresh out of college. Like we had very little experience. I
It's like,
think he was still a
what am
better
I getting
programmer than I am.
into?
He's like a senior engineer at Amazon or something now. Really badass,
Dang,
but he was always a
nice,
really good programmer. But
nice.
anyway, he started profiling this thing and figuring out what was going on there and just digging and digging and digging and trying to track down like why is performance so bad? Like why is it killing it? What's killing this game? Is it the models? Are we just doing too much there? Is it something with the physics system? Maybe the pathfinding is killing it. It's client side, so maybe not that. Maybe it's particles or something
Sure,
like
yeah.
what's going on? And he tracks it all down to find the solution. So I want to just give you a second to just guess what the solution is. In fact, what we should do is have everybody that's watching this
Yeah,
hold
everyone
on for just a
comment
second.
below.
Comment down below and
Pause
guess what you
first.
think the performance problem was. What do you think the issue was? Because it was. I'll tell you. You go ahead and guess.
Um, Probably was it something graphics related at all?
Nothing with the rendering, or nothing with the graphics, at least.
Okay.
Nothing with the models or particles.
Was there just some like random bit of code that was just stuck in like a while loop that was just going haywire?
No, I would have guessed something like that too. It was actually the user interface. The UI system was killing performance. The UI system would drop low CPU systems down to
Yeah.
1 frame per second, just basically
Ooh.
on its own. It could
Ooh.
kill your system on its own if your CPU was slow enough. And the reason
Wow.
for it was the UI was supposed to be like this customizable, reskinnable, themable thing like they have in
Okay.
World of Warcraft and all those other games. And it was coded by, I don't know, I think one person on the team probably just kind of pushed off to them as like,
Sure.
hey, you go make the UI. We're building an MMO. Like, we don't have time to build this customizable UI. You go build it, right? I don't know the exact workflow of how that happened, but that's kind of how I picture it in my head. Is they find like, hey, this junior or mid-level engineer, like, hey, go make this UI system and build it
Yeah.
here. And he builds it and it works fine. It's customizable and everything's good. But on a slow system, it falls apart because it's doing a couple million string comparisons every frame to check to see if the
Oh.
UI elements match to update them. So it wasn't doing any, there was no eventing there to do like a callback when things updated. So every frame it's like scanning through all the things,
Oh.
string comparing all the things, and checking to find
Oh.
the right
Yeah.
elements to
That'll do
update
it
those elements,
for sure.
and just destroying performance. So like it's essentially like doing this string double equals that string, but millions of times every frame on a slow system in the early 2000s. So the CPU, while it's trying to play the game, just
Yeah.
start to fall apart trying to render the UI. So eventually, once he figured that out, I think it took a couple weeks to actually track down the issue, figure out what was going on, and come up with the solution. But his solution is like swapped out the strings with enums, and performance skyrocketed. Like instantly, like suddenly, like our player base could have doubled because all those people that
Yeah.
couldn't play could suddenly get a good 30, 40 frames a second.
Yeah. No, and that's also goes to show why testing is important, and not just testing on your dev stations, but on, actual end computers, and, whatever you publish your minimum specs to be, make sure you actually test on those minimum specs.
And don't guess too, is I think that
It's a good
one of
point.
the
Yeah.
biggest parts, because people oftentimes, there was a lot of guessing on why performance was bad. And even like
Mm.
when we weren't dealing with performance related issues, like trying to figure out what was wrong, there was always this knowledge and idea that yes, the game ran a little bit slower, but it was because the graphics were so much better, right? It was because it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
doing
like,
all these
kind of
advanced
the,
graphics things.
the things that I was guessing, and, like you said, you probably might have guessed there was some
Yeah.
kind of code going off
Like
somewhere
it's
else,
super
like,
complex and there's a lot of stuff going on, right? So
yeah,
it's
and then you
gonna
just
slow
end up
down a little
going
bit. Like,
down a
oh, it's
rabbit
just this.
hole of like looking for all these possible problems, and you end up just not finding the actual solution and wasting a whole bunch of time.
Yeah, it was definitely a big lesson for me, and that was one that I got early on. It was like I got lucky enough to kind of witness and see that, in my first year of being a professional game developer, just or at a company like that where I could see like this is what happens if you don't profile it and you don't actually use some data to figure out what's going on, or the difference of using the data versus not using the data. And
Yeah.
there are lots of reasons that shit happens. Like stuff gets crazy, games are launching, and there's demands everywhere to add more things, and there's no time or energy or anything to fix or improve things, let alone to go find that the UI is killing things, right?
Yeah. No, crazy.
Like, we don't care about that. We want to be able to climb up trees and shoot cannons off of ships and knock people off the tree. Damn it! Like that. That's the kind
Yeah.
of thing that you're dealing with as the lead programmer on projects like that.
Yeah. No, and that's a lesson that you'll never forget. So, and then I guess kind of going along that, after that experience, how had maybe your testing or profiling, how had like your personal and maybe your team habits changed after that?
Well, for me, it took a while before I really got into performance optimization after that. Like I kind of saw that, but a lot of the focus that I was doing was on code that was never going to be non-performant. I mean, I would optimize it a little bit, but I didn't really have to worry too much about it. So it took many, many years before I think I needed to really focus on it. It was when I started jumping back into mobile development that I
Hmm.
really had to focus on optimizing for performance and making the game just run well on multiple devices. And at
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
time, and luckily, like I had that story and many others from the past of like just seeing performance issues and seeing random bugs that people had gone through and fixed. And that helped me a lot to just understand what I needed to do when I was building these games to profile them out early on. So one of the habits that I have is like if I'm building a game that I'm actually targeting to a device and I know what that target is, I like to just profile it relatively regularly and play it on the device. Like try it out on the device. Mostly just profile it and just look for outliers. So I'll run through and I'll look for either CPU spikes, the simple stuff like, hey, did I screw up something here? Did I mess up some stupid like a for loop that doesn't end or whatever? I screwed up a
Yeah.
simple
Yeah. Yeah.
statement or something.
Exactly.
It happens to everybody. Um,
Hmm.
so go look for those types of things. And the other thing I'll look for a lot is allocations. So one of the things that it still doesn't like automatically click in my head every time when I'm writing code is memory allocation and
Hmm.
minimizing that. So I'll run the profiler and see, am I allocating memory anywhere that it's large amounts or that seems to be happening every frame? And then I'll look at it and say, hey, is this something that I can just easily undo? Like, do I need to be allocating this? Can I change 3 lines of code and suddenly I'm not
Right.
allocating
Right.
memory constantly and
Yeah.
not causing these problems? So that's, I think, like the biggest takeaway for me has just been to actually profile it and just look at the hard data and stop trying to guess where the problem is, because I see a lot of people just guess and always like just profile it and see, and most of the time I profile it and the answer was nothing like what they thought it was. It was something completely different.
Yeah.
Usually
Yeah. But yeah, so kind of going along the whole lines of profiling and everything, it's kind of interesting. Unity actually recently published some dots best practices guides for when you're developing with dots and ECS. I'll leave a link down in the description if anyone wants to check them out. I think they're super helpful. But they were saying some interesting things about performance and profiling. So actually, one of their recommendations to have was to always have a profiler window open, basically when you're developing, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's not necessarily something that I put into practice myself, but they're basically just saying, it's really helpful for, I think, learning, as you're kind of experimenting to like see how, if you change a system or something like that, how that can like immediately affect performance one way or another. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing that they were saying along those lines.
I think that's a neat idea. That's probably something that everybody should try at some point in time. Just build your game with like the profiler up either off to the side or on a second monitor or something, so you can just kind of see what's going on, because you're probably going to be doing it and just like you click on them and randomly see a spike and it's going to pique your curiosity. Like,
Yeah.
what did I do there? The downside of that is like you want to make sure that you don't fall into like a rabbit hole of like, I'm going to go optimize away these 10 milliseconds when I click on a button. Right? Like you want to make sure that the thing you're optimizing is actually important and makes a difference. But
Yeah. No,
it's
and
nice to be able to see that when those things happen, or when something weird happens in your game, be able to look like, well, why did this seem like it was slow? Was it actually slow? Feeling weird? What's happening?
yeah, and that was kind of like another thing that they recommended is you only really want to optimize, the system that's taking up the most amount of time in your each frame. They said, if you're doing something that's like running across like 10 entities and it's, not super crazy efficient, but it's, easy to write code and it works well, don't even worry about that. Only optimize the systems that are actually doing a lot of things every single frame.
Yeah, I think that's good advice in general. Dots
Hmm.
and non-dots. Just
Yeah. Yeah.
optimize the things that are the heavy workload. I see a lot of people try. I was kind of joking about optimizing away the 10 milliseconds, but I've seen people do it where like they're going through and they're optimizing away times that aren't going to matter, like things that nobody is ever going to notice, including them. Like it's,
Right.
they're optimizing 10 seconds or 10 milliseconds away from a load time or some other process that's just not
Yeah, it's not even
noticeable.
perceivable to you,
Yeah.
so
And there are times when it's good to optimize and like, maximally optimize things. But most of the time, yeah, you want to hit the thing that's the biggest. Whatever the highest thing in the profiler is probably the one that you want to knock out. And if there's one thing that's 10 times bigger than the other one, I would ignore the little one. Just focus on that 10 times bigger one. Don't focus on the little one yet at all until you can knock that one down so that the other one's the big one.
yeah,
And that's kind of like
exactly,
the
exactly.
habit that I like to get into is hit the big one until it's not the big one and then go on to the next one
Yep,
until they seem inconsequential, or that they're just not going to have any performance payoff.
nice. Yeah, so, I don't know, in your development, do you use any kind of, like, external, tools for monitoring performance or getting better performance out of your projects at all?
Now that I'm in Unity, I rarely ever use any external tools. I
Yeah,
mean, outside of code editors, mostly because they've started to just kind of build a lot of the stuff in, at least all of the things that I would need, like the frame debuggers, the profiler, and they've kind of advanced that profiler quite a bit, the memory profiler and being able to grab snapshots and stuff. All of the things that like I used to grab external tools for when I do C++ stuff or even like enterprise development, seems like they just kind of pull them all into the editor. So I can't think of anything outside of Rider that I use, or like code editors and source control stuff that I use now that actually integrates with the editor. It's a good question though. I mean, because I used to do it all the time before.
yeah, yeah, I'm
Like I said,
sure.
profilers used to be separate things that you would get, or get the Intel one or the Redgate one or whatever profiler was out there. And all of the tools were separate. So it's nice that they're all kind of brought in there. I like that. So it makes it really accessible. So everybody should be using them too.
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
get a
totally.
license, right? You just hit the window.
Yeah, so I guess moving along from performance, we can maybe talk about, how people can start to think about leveling up their game development skills, I guess. So I know a lot of people who watch this channel are probably at varying levels of game development on their game development journey. So some people may be a little bit newer, some people may be a little bit more experienced. But maybe we can start to talk about some things about, just how everyone can start thinking about how they want to, progress to the next levels of game development and just kind of improve their skills.
Yeah, just to kind of get better at being a programmer and a game developer. I think that's
Yeah, yeah,
a great
totally.
thing to talk about, and it's something that's if for me it's a little bit hard because like a lot of it has just been experience, like just going through time and time and time, and I've been doing it for so long that
Well,
like
and hey, I think that's great advice to people right there is, just stick with it. You may not have all the answers to begin with, but you pick up a little bit at a time, and sure, maybe you don't remember everything that you've ever learned. But the more you get obsessed with it and learning all kinds of different things, then the kind of like baseline of what just slowly over time levels up. I think that's a yeah, good point.
yeah, I think it ramps up too. It doesn't. It's not even like slow. It
Yeah,
it kind of
yeah.
goes slow, and then it starts to pick up really quick. And I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, but I don't think that I learned at the most optimal rate at all. Like I think that
Hmm.
there are definitely people who are way better at it than me that have been doing it a lot longer that just have learned quite a bit faster. I went through a relatively slow process of like basically getting a job and learning 99% of the stuff on the job, right? Like just
Yeah.
kind of like constantly and 99 95% of the stuff on the job, right? When you start your first programming job, no, at least most people, you got like 5% of the knowledge that you're going to end up with.
Yeah.
Like, you barely know anything. You think you know a whole lot and you barely know anything. There's so many other things going on that you just kind of like learn about over time and slowly get
Yeah.
exposed to it and get added on. But it's I would say that you can do a lot of things though to kind of speed that process up. You don't
Okay.
necessarily have to go as slow as I did. I do recommend definitely working on games or working just in the industry or whatever it is that you want to get good at. Like if you can do that full time and you were doing it 8, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, your full time job plus all the fun stuff that you're doing with it, you're going to get way better, way faster. If you're only
Totally.
able to dedicate, 2 hours a day working on game stuff, then it's going to take you way longer. It's going to take you 5 times as
Yeah.
long as if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
dedicate 10 hours a day to it. But barring that, I would say the other things you can do, like say you're still outside of the industry and not working there full time. Or actually, let's start with you're working in games. So if you are
Okay.
working
Yeah.
in games already and you're doing that, like that's your job. You go in, you work on maybe you make the Hello Kitty game or My Little Pony for iPhone or whatever it is, right? You're working on some game and you want to get better. I say the first thing to do is don't only work on that one game. Like don't only work on that one project. Don't only
Yeah.
work on your single work project. It's the biggest way to kind of like get yourself stuck in a hole and stop progressing and stop learning. If you're only working on one project that's essentially probably been built by somebody else and you're just kind of following their footsteps and following their patterns and implementing things into their already pre-built setup and game and stuff, that's great for learning. It's good for getting better, and it's awesome like to have a job doing that, right? But
Yeah.
it's not the best way to just learn. You need to be working on multiple things. You need to have your own, I would say, at least a single side project that you're working on at home, off of work, where it's just kind of like a passion hobby project. Doesn't have to be huge. Doesn't have to be a thing that you're spending like 4 hours a day on and ruining your life on. But it should be something that you spend at least a couple hours a week working on and thinking about. Maybe it's only two
Yeah.
hours a
Yeah.
week or 4 hours a week, but you're going back every time and just adding a little bit more, thinking more about it, and maybe you're abandoning it and changing it later, or swapping it out because you changed your mind or whatever. But you're just working on that process of building something on your own where you're forced to go learn things. Because when you build your own games on your own outside of work, you're forced to go like figure out how do you do this thing. With work projects, a lot of times that like how to do it's already figured out. It's just a matter of go
Yeah. Yeah.
implement,
That's a good point. Yeah.
go add the freaking purple pony and the yellow pony and fix the code so they can jump higher or whatever. But with these things, when you're building your own games, you have to do a lot of research and you have to start digging into like, why does this system not work right with this? How do I make this thing work? How do I get this cool effect? How do I learn how to make a shader? Like you start to, grab a bunch of new skills and expand a lot faster than you will just working for
Yeah.
somebody doing the tasks that assigned to you in Jira and only that. And like I said, I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
people do that. They just do the work that's assigned to them, nothing else, and then honestly, they just have a hard time after that. So if that job disappears, they have a hard time finding new jobs. They
Mm.
have a hard time getting just promotions and moving up and going from company to company. Not that that's, some people really like that, and
Yeah.
I get it, but it's just not for me. Like I like the constantly be getting new skills and finding new things out and just kind of, sharing and showing that stuff too. Because if you can find these things out and like you implemented some cool new thing at home and you can bring that into work, it's going to help at work too. Like it can help
Yeah.
them in multiple ways, make the project
Yeah.
better and also just help you at work and
No,
getting raises and
absolutely.
promotions and stuff and having a little bit more pull at the company and stuff.
Yeah. No, yeah, when you're working your job, a lot of times you can be like so focused on that one particular thing, and you will build up a lot of skills in that area probably relatively quickly, especially because, you're dedicating so much time to it. But doing things outside of that, that's going to make you a more kind of well-rounded developer. You're going to understand the big picture, how, everything kind of connects just a little bit better. Um, and actually, earlier I was looking up this thing that Double Fine does. It's called Amnesia Fortnite. Are you familiar with this?
No.
So basically, what they do, I'm pretty sure they do it every year, and they've done like documentaries on this that I think are just available on YouTube. And so it's called Amnesia Fortnite. So it's because it's amnesia is you forget about everything that you're working on, and Fortnite it's 2 weeks. So basically, like at work, the whole company does a 2 week game jam where they separate into a bunch of small little teams, and they all just create one, game jam game within that 2 week period. And there have actually been a bunch of games that they've created that have came from these little Amnesia Fortnite game jams.
That's really cool. I have to check
Yeah.
that out. I like that whole mentality and just the idea of taking a break and building something different. We've done that before. I've seen other companies do that. I didn't know about theirs. That 2 week one's awesome. But I've
Yeah.
seen other
Yeah.
companies do that, and we've replicated that a couple times at some of the companies I've been at, and on a smaller scale, doing it for like a day or 2 days at the most. I would love to do like a 2 week one. That would be awesome. Where you're just going
Yeah.
through and just
No, totally.
hacking and
Just have
trying
like
out
two
different
weeks
things,
to just
prototypes.
focus on nothing other than just making a cool game with some people. I think that'd be
Yeah, those are
awesome.
those are a lot of fun, and it gives you that, I guess, the camaraderie and like the bonding of the team, and you start to see other people's skills and see them outside of their normal. Here's the task I sent you, and here's the result. Right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get to kind of break that up. So that's definitely a good thing to do. And I recommend anybody at their company do. I don't know about the 2 weeks if you get that approved, but that seems really cool.
Yeah. Right. Oh, we don't have the budget for that.
Yeah, I mean, I struggled to get like a 1 day one. They're like, "You want to waste a whole day?" Like, I don't want to waste a day. I wanna, like
Yeah.
expand our skills and get better so we're faster. Always a hard one to sell, but it's
Yeah.
it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. It's important for sure. Let's see. You got anything else that people can do to level up their game development skills? I know using Rider if you're using Unity for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah. So,
I
yeah, I'd mentioned, I guess I kind of went on a big long rant about what to do if you're working in games. And I also think Writer is worth mentioning. Like, if you're not using Writer, you should try it out. They have a free
for sure.
trial. I tried out the free trial for 30 days. And the way that I did it was I forced myself to use Writer. So I
Yep.
knew that if I didn't force myself to use it, I was going to open it up and go right back to Visual Studio because that's what I've done before. Like I
Yeah.
opened it
Yeah.
up, I was like, this looks weird. I don't remember the hotkeys. The hotkey didn't work. I'm going back to Visual Studio. So I made the decision after enough of my friends said, hey, you just got to do it. I made the
Hmm.
decision to lock myself for 1 month. I was not going to use Visual Studio for
Yeah.
anything Unity related. Only use it if I absolutely had to for something else. I was just going to use Rider. And over that process, over the month, I would say it didn't take a month, about a week in after
Hmm.
getting
That's
comfortable with
probably
it,
about
getting
what it was for
familiar
me.
with the
Yeah.
hotkeys. I was like, "Yep, I don't need to worry about it. I'm never going back." I was like, "I'm sold." And like by the end of the month, I was 100% solidified and just
Oh
like a
yeah.
giant writer advocate.
Yeah.
It's
Same here.
made things easier and faster for me. And the
Hmm.
reason that it makes it better is that it primarily just gives really good recommendations and tips on how to fix your code and how to
Yeah.
clean up your code. And it gives detailed in- information on why it's making recommendations. So a lot of the time, like in Visual Studio, you have a warning and it'll say, you know, warning number this, and there's a link to a document that would explain what that warning is, but nobody ever reads it or can tell what the hell it means. In Rider with the Unity specific ones, it'll give you like a very nice detailed description of
Yeah, yeah, and
exactly
it's super
why this is a
relevant. Yeah.
problem specifically in Unity. It's like
Yeah,
in
yeah, it's very
Unity,
relevant, yeah, to what you're
yeah,
working on.
yeah, and it gives good advice and tips that are Unity relevant and yeah, specific. So
Yeah.
it does a better job of that than any of the other editors that I found. It's also really, really fast. It's easy to
Mhm.
use and just get around. It loads up quicker than everything else. It's easy to find things. I just double tap shift and find whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I can run unit tests and everything else from there. I've just gotten really, I don't know, obsessed with that thing. I love using Rider.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm definitely hooked on it as well now. I think one of my favorite features of Rider is basically kind of like all the template options. So like you can just right click in the like file explorer, and then you can say, you know, create a mono behavior or a scriptable object, and then it'll already be like, you know, pre-populated in the correct namespace, and it has, you know, some basic things that you might want. And I've even created my own for the Unity ECS stuff, because in Unity ECS, as I kind of mentioned earlier, oh, my video, I think my camera died. So we will
Oh yeah, you froze.
flip over to this one. Yeah.
Oh,
All right. Okay. Camera died there. So
all good.
Um, yeah, so basically what I was saying is one of the best things about Rider is kind of like all the templates, and so I use them a lot for the ECS stuff. Because as I was saying earlier, I think maybe in your video, um, that you end up using a lot of different data components. You know, you want to break it down into really small components. And so because you have so many of these, you know, you're creating them over and over and over again. So if I can just say right click, create a new component, and then I even set it up so it gives me different options. If I want to make like a new authoring component or just you know, a basic empty a tag or whatever, and it just, you know, immediately does that for me, and it saves me a whole bunch of time, just, you know, all that repetitive typing and everything.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's yeah, speed is what it's best at, right? And making it so that you can do things quicker and you can build your code and build your game faster. At
Yeah,
least that's
yeah.
been my experience with it. So
Mhm.
anybody that's watching this and hasn't tried out Rider, should definitely go try that thing out and go get the trial, give it a try, and force yourself to use it for a while. I mean, maybe not when you're in the middle of a crunch or something. You know, do it when you got some time to relax, get used to new hotkeys, and spend the
Yeah.
time searching for the new hotkeys and things. Don't try
Yeah,
to go back and change
I
them.
did it when I was starting up a new project, and I think that was, probably the best time to do it is when you're starting up a new project. Maybe not necessarily like a game jam type project, but, you know, for me, it was helpful to kinda go through that full, you know, creation process of starting something new, and then that's when you really see the benefits of, you know, how quickly you can start, implementing new features and seeing, you know, all the recommendations it gives you and everything.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth using, but hopefully everybody agrees. I guess hopefully you try it out and you agree. I haven't met anybody who's tried it out and didn't love it yet.
Yeah.
So
No,
at least
and there are a ton of like configuration options that you can set inside there to like really cater it towards your needs. You know, if you have a specific code style that you like to follow or whatever, you know, you can definitely set those up in Writer.
yeah, it's definitely super customizable, and I think from what I remember, it'll automatically detect a lot of those things too, and then start to
Hmm.
ask if you just want to use these standards that it's detecting you're using. I wanted to bring up one other thing too.
Please.
On just the getting started and getting better part, right? So
Mhm.
one of the things that I think is important to mention for everybody, like say you're just getting started and you're building a couple games and trying to figure out like how to write the code. So we're gonna talk about code for a moment. Like trying to figure out how to write better code, like able to figure out the basics of moving things around, and you can set up a simple game, like maybe like a simple Angry Birds or Flappy Bird type thing is no problem. But you're trying to get into slightly bigger things and trying to figure
Okay.
out like what that code looks like. And I would recommend that everybody start to look into and I want to recommend this in the right way, but I want to recommend that people look into code design patterns, but with the very important caveat of not trying to go just implement them into your game or
Mm,
not trying to go shove them into your game.
yeah.
But what I would recommend is that you go through the process of just researching them and understanding them, not trying to use them necessarily, but just understanding what they are, what the word design patterns means, like why people talk about it, and what some of those patterns are, like what the common design patterns are that you'll use in something like Unity or in game development. The ECS is definitely one of those. Entities
Hmm.
are essentially a design pattern, and
Right.
componentization is a
Right.
design pattern. Um, but there are a lot of code-based design patterns that are very common that people will see and they'll talk about. They'll use words like flyweight or singleton or
Hmm.
observer or there's a lot of them. I don't want to list them all, but tons and tons of patterns. You could probably go through a list of 30 or so patterns just that you could find in a game. Now you're not going to find them all in a game, and that's the problem. Like people will learn them and try to go shove them into their game. And I
Right.
say that because like I've done it before. Like when I
Oh,
first learned
absolutely.
about design patterns, I was like, oh, these are awesome. I was like,
I
where
can
does
use this
that go
here and
in? Where does
here and
that go
here and
in? I'm gonna
here.
put that right there. The better thing to do is start to understand that those patterns exist and look for parallels and similarities in your own code. If you're trying to
Mm,
solve problems that you've seen solved in some other design pattern video
yeah.
before, go rewatch that video and see if it actually applies. And maybe that implementation of the pattern is a slightly cleaner and more standardized version of what you're doing there. And you might find some really useful ways to clean up your stuff and make it easier to understand and easier to work with. But also just having that list of like you've gone through it many times and knowing like, hey, if I have this type of problem, maybe that pattern sounds kind of familiar. I'm going to go look it up. So just having an idea of what some of the patterns are and that they exist and that you can look them up and dig into where they can fit into your game. So one of my favorites was like the design pattern library on Pluralsight. Um,
Okay.
they have it's been a long time since I watched it, but they had one that's like 18 hours of
Oh, wow.
videos on design patterns, and it's like
Yeah.
30 minutes per design pattern broken
Okay.
into like 5 or 10 sections with like here's the problem, here's the bad solution, here's the design pattern that is kind of solves the solution, and here's the implementation of the design pattern. Here's
Right.
the two side by side. You can see where the benefit came and how that applied. And what you can do with those, what I did with them was just watch them through randomly, just pick one a day, watch it, and not implement it, but just absorb it. Like get the idea that this thing exists and it might apply to my game. Again, don't try to just shove them in, but just understand that they exist and start to see more code. And the other benefit there is that when you're doing that, you have like some set practice or some set like learning of things like things that you can actually go through and list to learn and get this list of all these patterns. But you're also seeing other people's code, which I think is really
Yeah.
important to do.
Yeah.
If you're not seeing other people's code and you're just writing stuff and seeing your own stuff, it's gonna get bad. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
maybe not. Maybe you can just keep improving it. But my guess is, with me at least, it gets bad because like you stop picking up new things, you stop seeing the problems in your own code and the better improvements and the things that you can grab from other people's stuff for the new tricks, tips and techniques and types of stuff that people are using in their code and in their code writing process. So I definitely recommend watching a lot of people do coding and seeing these different things, even if they don't directly apply to a problem that you're trying to solve and they're not just strictly entertainment.
Yeah.
Like try to
Yeah.
watch these weird nerdy things just for entertainment and on the side and let them somewhat absorb.
Right. Yeah, I think that's good advice. Just kind of like familiarizing yourself with the different design patterns. You don't necessarily need to know the ins and outs of every single one by heart, but maybe if you're like watching through a couple of these design pattern videos, and then you kind of think to yourself like, oh, hey, like this probably could solve this problem that I had in a project that I was working on previously. If you ever do have that thought and kind of keep an eye out for that, then maybe I think it'd be a good time to actually open up that older project of yours and try and implement that and just kind of go through that process. And maybe if it ends up being the incorrect solution, you still kind of went through that process of trial and error, actually implementing that type of thing and seeing how it works in practice yourself.
Yeah, I think that's good because you're learning it on a real system that you have some context and
Hmm.
information about without risking blowing everything up, like taking the game down, right? Like that's definitely a good idea.
Sweet. Yeah. So I think that was a great conversation. Thanks again, Jason, for coming on here today. Of course, make sure you go check out Jason's channel. I'm sure you already are subscribed over there. And do check out the video that we just did. Again, we kind of talked about dots and ECS and everything like that. I think it was a really good conversation. So go over there, hit the like button. But make sure you hit the like button over on this video and subscribe to the channel. Jason, you got anything to say?
Just to remember to drop a comment down below about that question we asked earlier, and then hit the like, subscribe, the alert, and all that. Come check out the page, game.courses, and my YouTube channel and all that. And thanks again for having me on here and having this conversation. It's been a lot of fun, man. Yeah, that's right. And remember that Jason does have a new course that he just released. So I'll have some links down in the description for that. So definitely go check that out. Well, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that, I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of the day, and I'll see you in a future video.